shares of Nvidia sank on Monday,
crashing over the past 2 quarters here.
Gaming is expected to fall 33% year over year.
And the number comes out, it's pretty terrible.
The chipmaker warned in preliminary results that its second quarter revenue would drop by 19%.
The stock is really getting beaten up.
Something big just happened and Nvidia could be in serious trouble. I know that might sound crazy since Nvidia's stock just rocketed up by more than 40% over the last few weeks. But what that really means is Nvidia's stock is priced for perfect execution. And what I'm about to show you is a threat to every part of their business, from their graphics cards to their data center chips and beyond. Your time is valuable, so let's get right into it. It's no secret that the GPU market has been in serious trouble lately, thanks to a few key factors coming together all at once. As the world opened back up from the pandemic, people stopped spending nearly as much time and money on their PCs. Instead, they've been going out and catching up on everything they've missed over the last 2 years. And even when people do choose to stay inside, streaming and gaming are moving more and more onto mobile devices, further reducing the time and money people spend on their PCs. That's why the global PC market actually shrank by about 15% over this past year. Then there's the whole crypto mining thing. When Ethereum switched from proof of work to proof of stake, demand for high-performance GPUs specifically went way down. Not only that, but many Ethereum miners are breaking down their rigs and reselling their high-cost GPUs in a way that undercuts Nvidia's new GPU sales. And don't forget about inflation ravaging the economy and the incoming recession, both of which force consumers to limit their spending in the first place, whether that means shopping for the biggest discounts or not upgrading their computers at all if they can help it. But here's the thing, GPUs are one of the most expensive parts in any computer, and Nvidia is the GPU market leader with about a whopping 80% market share. Around a third of all of Nvidia's revenues come from GPU sales, so they're very sensitive to these kinds of market headwinds. In fact, factors like these caused Nvidia to lose almost $1.5 billion in the previous quarter alone. But now Nvidia has a brand new problem. For the first time in a long time, they have some very serious competition for their GPU throne, and it couldn't have happened at a worse time for them. Here's what's going on. If you've ever heard Nvidia use words like Pascal, Turing, or Ampere, these are the names of the architectures or system design frameworks for Nvidia's chips. Every 2 years, Nvidia comes out with a new line of GPUs based on a new architecture. For example, the GeForce GTX 10 series came out in 2016 and was based on the Pascal architecture. Then in 2018, they came out with the RTX 20 series, which had the Turing architecture. Then in 2020, Nvidia released the RTX 30 series, which was based on Ampere. Ampere really blew away almost everything that came before it. The timing of these Ampere-based cards couldn't have been any more insane. The RTX 3070, the 3080, and the 3090 came out in September of 2020, which was smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, the chip shortage, the crypto boom, and when people were getting their stimulus checks. As a result, the price of the 3080 Ti spiked from around $1,000 to sometimes over $2,000. Just to be clear, that means that these GPUs were selling for more than entire computers, including the GPU itself, just a few months earlier. And they sold out like hotcakes. Until recently, Nvidia's RTX 3080s were some of the hardest items to get your hands on. Now it's the middle of November 2022, and the top-end RTX 4090 came out about a month ago, and the RTX 4080 comes out this week. These 40 series cards are built on an architecture called Ada Lovelace, which is supposedly another giant leap forward in processing power. This thing absolutely crushes all kinds of benchmarks in gaming, 3D rendering, visual effects, and many different machine learning and AI applications. It's also about twice as power efficient as the 30 series cards, which were already getting pretty darn good. Alright, here's where things get really interesting. Nvidia also made some pretty questionable choices with these cards. First off, these things are thick. The 4090 takes up 3 or 4 rear expansion slots on the back of a computer case. Most modern graphics cards only take up 2, so these 40 series cards take up a ton of extra space. By the way, the Strix, which is Asus's overclocked version of this card, is also so long that it literally cannot fit into some standard computer cases.
Hold on. This right here is just a super basic Lee & Lee Landcool type of chassis. Very common. Actually, Lee & Lee has great value with their cases and airflow. So a lot of people will go.
These overclock cards are usually the ones that hardcore gamers tend to go for because they have the best performance out of the box. Remember, that's Nvidia's core audience for these cards, but many of them won't buy it if it means that they need to buy a new computer case and rebuild their entire machine just to get it to fit. And even if you did have the foresight to build or buy a computer with a big enough case and a solid enough power supply to fit this thing, you might have another problem. These cards use a whopping 450 watts of power, which means they come with a power adapter to connect it to 4 8-pin rails, when most modern cards would only need 2. This wouldn't be a big problem, except the adapter that Nvidia provides reportedly has build quality issues, and the interconnections are prone to melting and causing damage. This isn't some accessory like how an iPhone used to come with wired earbuds. You need this adapter to power the card.
This, as multiple other users have chimed in showing pictures of melted or burnt power connectors, and they aren't necessarily using these cables in a horrible fashion either. They're either vertically posted like this one, or even in cards that are mounted vertically like this without an adapter cable being scrunched up against the side panel or something that might cause trauma to the connection. It does seem like Nvidia is paying attention to this situation, at least right now, according to a post over on The Verge.
Oh yeah, and there's one more tiny detail. Even though we're not stuck at home anymore, and no one is getting stimulus checks, and everyone is worried about inflation and a recession, Nvidia's GeForce RTX 4090 costs $1,600. I'm a huge Nvidia fanboy, but even I can see that these graphics cards are going to get disrupted. And AMD didn't miss a beat taking advantage of this opportunity. This is the RX 7900 XTX, AMD's new flagship graphics card running on their RDNA 3 architecture. It comes out about a month from now, along with the slightly less powerful RX 7900 XT. Let me give you the comparisons first, and then I'll explain why AMD's design approach for this card could be pretty catastrophic for Nvidia's GPU business over the long term. First, the card doesn't need any sort of crazy power adapter, which means far fewer melted connections or component failures. It also uses 20% less power than Nvidia's RTX 4090, or about 360 watts. Second, AMD's RX 7900 XTX will fit in all standard computer cases and take up the standard 2 expansion slots on the back, not the 3 or 4 like Nvidia's 4090. Also, adding insult to injury, the Nvidia cards use the previous generation version 1.4a DisplayPorts, while AMD's DisplayPorts are the new 2.1s. This is kind of like moving from USB 2 to USB 3. The form factor might be the same, but the new DisplayPorts are about 3 times faster, which means higher frame rates, higher resolutions, or both. A new generation of monitors that can take advantage of these blazing speeds are right around the corner, and that's the whole point of spending $1,600 on a graphics card, right? Oops, except AMD's RX 7900 XTX isn't $1,600, it's only $1,000. Now, just to be clear, Nvidia's RTX 4090 is expected to score higher than AMD's cards in almost every benchmark, but only by about 10 or 20%. However, the Nvidia card costs a whopping 60% more than AMD's, and that's before even considering things like replacing the case or upgrading the power supply, both of which would add hundreds of dollars to the price tag. So even though Nvidia's cards have slightly better performance, AMD's have much better performance per dollar, which is exactly what most PC builders try to optimize for. In my opinion, the question that investors and enthusiasts should be asking right now is how AMD was able to take on Nvidia's RTX 4090 at so little cost. The answer is in the chip's architecture and its design, or should I say the chiplets, which are the little mini chip modules that get stitched together to form the full card for AMD. AMD's graphics compute die, which acts as the processor for the RX 7900 XTX, is made with TSMC's more advanced 5nm process. This is the part of the card that has the display and media engines, the shaders, and so on. And since it's built using a 5nm process, the compute die gets all those benefits, like having a higher transistor count, more instructions per clock cycle, faster AI acceleration, and ultimately just better overall compute performance at the same power. But the memory cache dies and controllers are made using a cheaper, less transistor-dense 6nm process. That's a decent chunk of the overall chip that's not being made any more expensive than it has to be, simply because AMD can break things out into separate chiplets, build each module out independently, and then make sure the connection between them is fast enough on the final product. The important thing to understand here is that chiplets form a core part of AMD's overall strategy. AMD, along with companies like Intel, ARM, Google, and even Meta Platforms, are supporting something called the Universal Chiplet Interconnected Express Standard, or UCIe. While the name seems pretty fancy, the idea is pretty straightforward. In the future, chips will be much more modular, and instead of one company designing everything like Nvidia does today, many companies can contribute smaller pieces to the overall design. So maybe AMD or ARM build out the cores, but Google builds out the I/O and Intel builds the memory, and they all connect in some standardized way. This modularity has some serious implications for the way that future chips of all kinds will get designed, not just graphics cards. AMD's customers will also be able to design semi-custom chips using AMD's chiplets for CPUs, GPUs, FPGAs thanks to their acquisition of Xilinx, and ARM-based DPUs thanks to their acquisition of Pensando. Then, if there's a little piece that they need from another company, or they want to deploy some piece themselves, they only need to take on the responsibility for that one little module, not build an entirely new chip. Likewise, AMD can build their own semi-custom designs based on a customer's power, performance, and cost requirements by changing out or tuning certain chiplets. AMD actually already does this with video game consoles like the Steam Deck, PlayStation, and Xbox, all of which run AMD's semi-custom chips today. The same is true with the Tesla Model 3, Model Y, and the refreshed Model S and Model X, all of which use AMD's RDNA 2 chips to run the infotainment system. So this modular chiplet approach lets AMD build and optimize a ton of semi-custom chips for a wide variety of markets, where they can then really fine-tune the compute, the cost, and the power based on what each specific application calls for, from PC processors and graphics cards to game consoles and Tesla infotainment systems. Nvidia doesn't really have anything like that yet, which is why their latest Ada Lovelace cards are still monolithic designs and not modular. To make things even worse for Nvidia and Intel, AMD just launched 18 different models of their 4th generation EPYC data center processors. These chips are built on TSMC's 5nm process and can have anywhere from 16 to 96 cores, 12 memory channels, and almost 3 times the performance of Intel's Xeon 8380. Server and processor cooling are a big part of a data center's power bill, so power efficiency is the name of the game here. AMD claims that 5 EPYC processors with 96 cores each could handle the same load as 15 Intel Platinum 40-core servers while using up to 54% less power and costing up to 51% less than Intel servers for the first year. AMD is seeing these kinds of big wins because they're optimizing for compute power per watt, instead of maximizing compute power at any cost like Nvidia does today. And now we've come full circle. At the start of the episode, I said that Nvidia stock is priced for perfect execution, but AMD's chiplet-driven designs are posing a serious threat to their PC and data center solutions. If we head over to Simply Wall Street and look at their fair value for Nvidia, which is based on a discounted cash flow model, we can see that Nvidia is roughly fairly valued. On the other hand, if we check out AMD, we'll find that it's about 40% undervalued as I record this. That actually means the stock would have to go up by about 70% for Simply Wall Street's fair value price target to get reached. And if we compare AMD and Nvidia's forward price to earnings ratios, so using their next 12 months of expected earnings, Nvidia is trading at a PE of about 64, while AMD trades at about 37. This is what I meant in the beginning of the video when I said that Nvidia stock is priced based on perfect execution, except I just showed you that they're not executing perfectly at all. Simply Wall Street is a great way to compare companies and make sure that you're investing in the best businesses at the best prices. I'm a huge Nvidia fan, but this shows me that right now is not the best price. Simply Wall Street is free to use forever, but if you want to evaluate unlimited companies each month, you can use my links to get an extended free trial and get 30% off your subscription when you sign up. I'll link to their pages on AMD and Nvidia for you in the description below, so you can make whatever decision is right for you. Speaking of which, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that Nvidia will stay on top of the GPU market, or do you think that AMD's chiplet-based designs will start eating into Nvidia's market share? What about for their data center solutions? I'm excited to hear your thoughts. As for me, I do think that Nvidia stock is in some serious trouble, and I'd want to see their price to earnings ratio fall more in line with their peers. But AMD doesn't get a free pass here, and AMD's stock could be in serious trouble as well. Want to know why? check out this episode next. And if you feel I've earned it, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. That lets me know to share more research like this. Either way, thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Ticker Symbol U. My name is Alex, reminding you that the best investment you can make is in you.